Hi there, my name is Sarah and I'd like to start off this video by asking you a simple yet very misinterpreted and underestimated question. Can you ever think about a time in your life that you felt completely lonely? I'm not asking you to think about a time that you've ever been physically alone, because there's a difference. Choosing to go read a book or go for a run alone is a choice, but loneliness is not a choice. It's a fundamental mismatch between the relationships we have and those we want. In Australia alone, 1 in 4 people have said they felt lonely each week, and it's known as a growing national challenge. Social isolation is a term often used interchangeably with loneliness, but while the two are closely related, they do not necessarily mean the same thing. Loneliness causes people to create the impression that they are alone even when there are people physically to be seen. This impression can come from experiences of being physically around people, but not emotionally experiencing connection with people. The best way to describe it is the feeling of being alone even amongst a crowd of people. Isolation has been defined as an objective state whereby the number of contacts a person has can be counted, whereas loneliness is a subjective experience. However, despite the difference in each term's meanings, the effects of these experiences are usually harmful and leave negative ramifications after either situation. The term social isolation can be represented as a lack of social contact which threatens the development of loneliness. It is a position where one is excluded from normal social systems, which can be activated by elements such as the absence of mobility, unemployment, or health problems. Isolation can consist of not leaving home for large amounts of time, little or no interaction with close friends, family and/or acquaintances, or even lacking links to services or engagements within the community. Now here's the thing. Those negative feelings as an effect of loneliness and social isolations don't end there. Loneliness and social isolation has been proven to have additional consequences on individuals' different developmental stages of life, from the way we change and grow from conception to death. This includes the effects of an individual's concept of physical development, cognitive development, and psychosocial development. A new study has found that loneliness can alter immune system cells, shedding light on the effects of individuals' physical development limitations by increasing susceptibility of illness. Additionally, there has been a large amount of research to prove that if we keep mentally active and frequently participating in social activities, this can prevent cognitive decline and delay the onset of Alzheimer's disease. Lastly, studies show that a children's capacity to learn is best facilitated by caring relationships between children and adults around them, suggesting that positive psychosocial development correlates with the positive cognitive development of an individual. It is clear that an individual's ability to positively develop physically, cognitively, and psychosocially is dependent on accessing the right help to break the isolation and socially. It is clear that an individual's ability to positively develop physically, cognitively, and psychosocially is dependent on accessing the right help to break the isolation and loneliness of an individual.
A large proportion of individuals suffering from loneliness and isolation are the elderly. Factors such as the death of a loved one or negative health influences all impact day-to-day social interactions. This is a case study of 96-year-old Jack. He lost his wife Audrey long ago and is now struggling with loneliness and isolation. Just after the war, Jack was on a train leaving the station when a beautiful woman shouted, "You can take me to the movies if you'd like." That year, they got married. 65 years of perfect marriage later, Audrey unfortunately had many strokes and developed dementia. For Jack, he describes his time as when the loneliness started. He explained the feeling of a deep ache where everything in the house reminded him of his late wife. The closeness and companionship felt when doing activities together, like taking hikes and walking, were no longer there, and it was clear that Jack was struggling with this feeling of emptiness. Now Jack finds solace in painting and the use of his computer, where on days where his mobility is restricted, he discovers that the computer allows him to see more of the world from home. However, at 96 years of age, Jack finds weekends the hardest as he doesn't have any friends that he can visit or that can visit him as they have all passed away. However, Jack is determined not to let his loneliness get him down. He contacted a volunteer companionship service where he now receives a phone call to chat every Sunday. His 3 children live hours away but still find time to call him a few times a week to catch up and try and find activities for him to do. Jack is finding it harder now as he is becoming frailer. Many times suggestions have been offered to him of communal living. However, he believes that his frailness and age will place a burden on anyone living with him. He sees his creative passion as a curse as now he struggles to paint and create art. Jack's story is a sad one. However, his resilience and ability to persevere through the toughest of times is one that should be praised and appreciated.
Loneliness for some people has been explained to be a transient experience, thus highlighting that loneliness for the minority of individuals does not have a long-lasting negative consequence. People believe loneliness motivates individuals to reach out and connect with people, however, this is not always the case. Isolation and loneliness for the majority of individuals is an epidemic which closes themselves off from numerous social settings. With social media attempting to keep society connected, it is effectively pushing individuals into a lonely state as it takes them away from the physical experiences of their own reality. On just an individual scope, when isolation occurs, this negatively impacts the mental health of this person. There has been an increased correlation between loneliness, social isolation, and the risk of depression or anxiety. It prevents the individual from staying motivated and can jeopardize their sense of self. For a person to lose motivation, it can also trigger certain feelings of worthlessness. There is ultimately a shift in their identity as they disassociate themselves with the same things that effectively make them who they are. Some of the more physical symptoms of a person experiencing loneliness can be recognised as headaches, pains, loss of appetite, broken sleeping patterns, and even increased consumption of alcohol. The consequences for a person that has isolated themselves from society is crucial. It also has an impact on the family members of this individual. Children are more inclined to move away from their family home to obtain employment. This can hinder the relationship between children and parents as there is ultimately a lack of contact between both parties. It can effectively come to this lack of communication within a family, which can lead individuals to an increased feeling of loneliness. A family support network represents a positive psychological resource which can ultimately enhance the well-being of individuals. It is vastly different for the individuals that lack of frequent family support. In 2017, across Australia, just over 3,000 people died due to intentional self-harm. However, the health risks associated with loneliness are beyond just mental health. There has also been a 30% increase in heart diseases and strokes. An aspect of this being the isolation felt by these individuals from not only their families, but also the wider society. An individual either taking their own life or passing away due to health risks has an emotional and physical effect on their families as their lives have been completely changed. The way in which a family functions while an individual is enduring loneliness can already be fractured as is. This is heightened significantly following the loss of a family member, especially to suicidal circumstances. Loneliness has been recognised as the next big health crisis across Australia. In recent studies, it states that individuals between the ages of 24 to 44 are the most lonely. So why is that? Well, it comes down to being in and out of jobs and having to pay the grand expenses that come with daily living. As stated previously, the motivation an individual holds decreases and they become more fatigued, therefore limiting roles met within their workplace. Excess amounts of stress can also limit the functions of their information processing model, such as the retrieval and working memory. As 1 in 4 Australians experience loneliness, this epidemic continues to grow within society and disrupts the flow of the economy. On the grand scheme of things, loneliness impacts medical and government infrastructures as they continue to balance out the distribution of resources and financial budget constraints. The collaboration of numerous industries surrounding the support for the individuals enduring social isolation can introduce new perspectives in saving numerous lives in Australia. Loneliness has been recognised as the next big health crisis for a reason.
Research into the psychological study of solitude aid in the understanding and implementation of strategies, interventions, and services that can be enforced to reduce social isolation and loneliness. Across the lifespan, it is evident that there are critical stages of an individual's life. Experiences and exposure to others during these periods of development may have a positive or negative influence on their capacity to adapt in a social environment. A strategy that may improve the well-being of an isolated individual is to encourage participation within the community to increase social inclusion and value in the person. Furthermore, the individual will gain support from the community and surrounding service providers. Particularly in the long term, this strategy could help to enhance the physical and mental health of the individual, expansion of their social network, building of positive relationships, and reducing the risk of social exclusion. A strong focus on changing negative thinking and connotations surrounding loneliness may be more beneficial than simply just looking at the issue from only the individual's perspective. Applying a holistic approach will assist in forming an intervention to alleviate the risks associated with social isolation and loneliness. Specifically, creating and executing campaigns, action research, and policy measures and programs that will work towards social change. The provision of these necessary tools are important factors to combat stigmas and stereotypes surrounding these individuals. These possible intervention pathways have the potential to support the individual's well-being, strengthen their social security, and lead to the further development of their identity. It also may help in maintaining strong, healthy relationships if implemented correctly, whilst also connecting them with the wider community. Studies conducted by developmental psychologists suggest that long-term experiences of isolation and loneliness, especially during childhood, may result in psychological pain and suffering across the lifespan. This can further be explored through the work of Bowlby. His work on attachment theory highlights how important early interactions with key figures are in becoming cognitively and effectively equipped as an individual amongst society. A core element is that all human beings have an innate motivation to seek a meaningful and emotional connection with a significant figure, for example, a child and their mother. In an effort to reduce loneliness for an individual and in alignment with attachment theory, an intervention plan may include the installation of programs that practice inclusivity that will assist in engagement of isolated persons during early childhood. This intervention could provide an opportunity for members of schools to participate in spaces that are supportive, leading to the positive outcome of safe environments and social security. However, if the socially isolated individual is unable to maintain connections and healthy relationships with peers and family, their interpersonal skills may not develop to sufficient levels necessary for quality interactions. As a consequence, if circumstances pertain and extend into adolescence and adulthood, this may produce unstable relationships and may result in the individual struggling with feelings of insecurity and feelings of loneliness.
Thank you for joining us as we talked about loneliness and social isolation. My name's Sarah.
My name's Georgie.
I'm Courtney.
I'm Natalia.
And we hope you enjoyed what you watched.